This video is about direct democracy in the USA. Before we start, let's have a look at some UK examples of direct democracy. Now, the most obvious is referendums, used only once UK-wide prior to 1997. Remember that in 1975, there was the decision to stay in the common market. That was the first national referendum in 1975. In the same decade, 1979, there is a referendum in Northern Ireland on Northern Ireland status in the United Kingdom. Then after 1997, we see a huge increase in the use of referendums on key areas of constitutional change, be it the 2011 referendum on electoral reform, the devolution referendums that we've seen in Scotland, Wales, London and the North East. You could also look at the Scottish independence referendum of 2014 and, of course, Brexit. So the most common and well-known form of direct democracy in the United Kingdom is referendums. But we've also got e-petitions too. And e-petitions are some element of direct democracy. They can force a response but not an action from the government. The most signed referendum in British political history had 6.1 million signatures. That was in 2019, and you can see it pictured there. It was the decision to revoke the decision to trigger Article 50 and for the UK to remain in the European Union. The government responded to that to say that the decision had been made in the referendum and that they would not be acting on that advice. And what you can see there is one form of direct democracy trying to outdo another, an e-petition trying to outdo a referendum. Another recent one, in 2020, over 1 million people signed an e-petition to end child food poverty, and that was in the wake of Marcus Rashford's campaign during the pandemic to make sure that children who were entitled to free school meals were fed while they were being schooled from home. And that was debated in Parliament, and in November of 2020, the government responded to announce a comprehensive support package for families who were struggling. So those are your UK examples. On the next slide, we're going to talk about American examples. The first and most significant and widely used is propositions. You will also see this referred to as initiatives. So the phrase ballot initiative or initiative and proposition means the same thing. I'm going to use the phrase proposition. A proposition is a proposal that is created, written, and proposed and voted on by citizens, often on issues in American politics where politicians are less likely to act, or in some cases where the Republicans and Democrats have the same position on a political issue. Now, the issue in particular, and we'll talk about it in this slide, an issue in particular that has been a right granted to American citizens is the medical or recreational use of marijuana in American states. At a federal level, marijuana is still a controlled substance and a banned substance, but in many states, either the medical or recreational use of marijuana is now legal. But we've seen all sorts of examples. There was a proposition in California in the year 2016, which would have meant that anyone performing in an adult movie would have had to have used contraception. And what you saw is the Republicans and the Democrats wanted to vote in favour of that proposition, was that male adult actors would have to wear a condom. Whereas the actors themselves were against the proposition. So we get all sorts going on when it comes to key issues. So sometimes it's on controversial topics, and other times it's where two political parties reach an agreement. There is a consensus on an issue, but the public want change. One area for a proposition that sort of came out of nowhere in 2022 was the issue of abortion. And that was a response to the Dobbs decision, which overruled Roe versus Wade. So the right to an abortion was guaranteed in the states of California, Kentucky, Michigan, and Vermont in 2022. In the state of Iowa, we get gun rights protected in the Iowa Constitution. So it's essentially affirming a commitment to the Second Amendment. And then finally, recreational use of marijuana. It was on the ballot in 5 states. It's already been legalised for medicinal or recreational purposes in many US states already. But in Maryland and Missouri, those states voted yes to decriminalise marijuana, whereas in Arkansas and North and South Dakota, there was a proposition to legalise recreational marijuana use, and in those states it was rejected. So it seems to be that marijuana is a frequent appearance on propositions. Second is recall. Now this is different to the United Kingdom. In the United Kingdom, a recall petition is triggered when an MP is suspended from the House for a certain period of time. So the MP has to have committed a violation of Parliament's rules or violated the law in order to be suspended from the House or even appear in the House of Lords in order for the recall process to happen in the Commons. Now, in the United States, it's a political process, so you can do it for political reasons. And it's at state level for public officials, so you can't do it for your senator in Washington, D.C., but you can do it for your governor. Now, only 2 governors have ever been recalled. The last attempted recall of a governor was Scott Walker in 2012 in Wisconsin, and he survived the recall. But in 2003, Gray Davis, the gentleman on the left, was recalled by the voters of California. The Democratic governor for the state was recalled, and a Republican candidate, Arnold Schwarzenegger, who you may remember, whom you may know from various films that he's been in, he won the subsequent election after Gray Davis was recalled. So the last successful recall of a governor came in the year 2003 in the state of California. Now, judges are public officials in the United States, and they can also be recalled. And there you can see pictured Aaron Persky. He was recalled and became the first Californian judge to be recalled in over 80 years after he was judged to have given a lenient sentence in a sexual assault case. So public officials isn't necessarily political officials like a governor, but it can be a justice too. And then finally, we have referendums. Referendums are available in all 50 US states. Propositions, for example, are only permitted in certain US states. But a referendum can happen in any US state when a state legislature passes a law but has to go to the people for approval. And quite often this is when the state constitution is being amended. So you can see there an example from the year 2000. It removed language from the Alabama state constitution, which banned interracial marriage. And you can see there 59.5 to 40.5% agreed to that change. And we'll stay in the state of Alabama for a more up-to-date example. In the year 2018, there was a referendum on whether state courthouses in Alabama could display the Ten Commandments. Now, there was a sort of a legal dispute as to whether that was against the concept of the separation of church and state. But it went to the voters of Alabama in a referendum, and 78% of voters voted in favour of changing the state constitution, thus allowing state courthouses to display the Ten Commandments in those rooms. So there you have it, a comparison of direct democracy in the United Kingdom compared with the United States. Just to recap, in the UK, the most frequent and well-known example is referendums. We do also have e-petitions. That's an element of direct democracy because you can get a response from government without necessarily forcing the government into action. In the United States, the most well-known and the most significant form of direct democracy is a proposition or a so-called ballot initiative. They tend to be on controversial issues where politicians are unwilling to act. Quite often marijuana has been one of those topics, but in 2022 we had abortion rights and gun rights in the state of Iowa. We did see 5 states considering the recreational use of marijuana. 2 states voted yes, 3 states voted no. Then we've also got recall that happens in certain states. It's only permitted in certain US states, and it's for statewide officials, so you can't do it for a member of the US House or US Senate. The last time a governor was recalled was 2003 in California, and also applies to judges. In 2018, a judge was recalled. And then at state level, across all 50 states, we have referendums to change the state constitution. And one key difference that you will have noticed is that our referendums and our petitions tend to be at national level. Yes, we do have some referendums that are regional, so they might only apply to Scotland or to Wales, to Northern Ireland, to London, but we also have nationwide referendums too. In the United States, direct democracy is at state level. We have propositions to change state law, recall of state officials, and referendums to change the state constitution. And another addition to that is, of course, that different states have different laws and rules and regulations. And so the reason why California has so many is that actually getting an initiative onto the ballot is very easy. You only need 5% of the turnout of the last election to support the initiative for it to go on the ballot paper. So we see a lot in California. There's only certain states that permit recall elections. Every state allows referendums when the state constitution is up for change. And so what you can see is direct democracy is possibly more relevant, certainly at state level in the United States, and used more frequently than it is in the United Kingdom.